What if the strongest response to betrayal isn't a roar, but silence? When someone wounds you, betrays your trust, even twists your kindness into a weapon to stab you with the first fire in your soul wants to explode back. It urges you to react, to fight, to defend yourself. That's natural. That's human. That's heart cry. But let me offer you something deeper than instinct. Something higher than emotion. Something real. Silence is not weakness. It's wisdom. The world shouts that when someone steps on your pride, you must stomp louder. That hurting words demand a louder response. But that's not strength. It's noise. It's reaction. Any heart can react. It costs nothing, but it takes real power to remain still, to choose silence, and to trust something beyond your words. There is power in silence. Clarity, too. By refusing to fire back, you create space not just around you, but within you. Space for God to move. Space for truth to surface. Space for your own peace to stay intact. Imagine a silent mountain weathering the storm. That unmoved stillness speaks volumes more than any battle cry. And trust me, nothing confuses your enemies more than silence. They expect fireworks. They expect you to unravel. They expect you to lash out, or at least speak up. But when you stay grounded, calm, steady, they don't know how to respond. They've lost their audience, their fuel, their fight, because your silence shows them they don't control you. People often mistake silence for surrender. They imagine you're weak if you don't defend yourself. But that couldn't be farther from the truth. Staying silent can mean you've already won on the inside. It means you're no longer under the tyranny of their opinions or lies. It means you've anchored yourself in truth, so you don't need anyone's approval or apology to continue living it. Think about Jesus before his accusers. He didn't shout to be understood. He didn't explain himself to people who had already decided to condemn him. No, he remained silent because he knew who he was, and he was anchored in purpose. When you understand who you are in God, anchored in His promises, you don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to clean up every rumor. Some battles aren't even yours to fight, and that's okay. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is, nothing at all. Not because you're afraid, but because you've already taken it to the throne. Because you trust God's justice over your own. God does see. He doesn't overlook pain or injustice. He's never blind to betrayal. When you choose silence over reaction, you're not bottling it up, you're handing it over. You're saying, Father, this is bigger than me. You handle it, and He will. He always does. In that silence, He moves. In that stillness, truth breaks forth. In that calm, peace begins to flow. Because when you refuse to dance to someone else's betrayal, and instead stand in your identity, you've already made your strongest declaration. In the silence, God is moving. Just because He hasn't responded on your timeline doesn't mean He hasn't heard you. He is not deaf to your cries. He's not distant or distracted. His timing is perfect. His justice is righteous. And when He responds, He doesn't just settle the moment, He restores what was lost. Still, I get it. Some of you hear that and immediately feel the tension rise in your chest. But I can't just let them get away with it. I can't stay quiet while they keep spreading lies. I need to say something. I understand that. I've felt that too. But let me tell you something that might just set you free. Letting go is not letting them get away. It's letting you get free. Free from the bitterness that poisons your peace. Free from the emotional weight of trying to be the judge and the jury. Free from the war you were never meant to fight in the first place. Silence isn't agreement. It's strength. It means you're wise enough to realize that not every insult needs an answer, and not every wound deserves a war. Some things simply aren't worth the oxygen it takes to respond. And some silence. It's the loudest sermon you'll ever preach. So next time someone hurts you, next time betrayal finds you, and the fire starts rising in your chest, pause. Take a breath. Don't run to clap back. Don't rush to prove yourself. Run to the secret place. Take it to God. Let your silence become a sanctuary where peace is protected. Let it be a bold, unshakable statement of trust that says, God, I don't need to speak, because I trust you to speak for me. And when you choose silence over reaction, wisdom over wrath, faith over fury, that's not weakness. That's power. That's how the battle is won, not by shouting louder, but by standing firmer. There's something I want you to carry deep in your spirit. You do not have to defend yourself. You don't have to clap back. You don't have to match disrespect with more disrespect. You don't have to prove anything to people who've already decided who they think you are. Because here's the truth. The truth always comes out. If you stay rooted, stay silent, stay steady, people's actions will reveal more about them than your words ever could. When someone tries to drag you down, it's not really about you. They want you to lose your composure. They want you to explode, to lash out, so they can point and say, "See? I told you they were unstable." But when you don't play their game, when you keep your peace, when you stay grounded in who God says you are, there's nothing they can use against you. Your silence becomes your protection. Your calm becomes your shield. You don't have to argue with people committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to explain yourself to those who don't even want the truth. You don't have to waste energy fixing someone else's perception. It's not your job to control their view. It's your job to walk in truth, to stand in integrity, to trust time and God to reveal what only they can. So let them talk. Let them twist. Let them wear the mask, because masks eventually slip. And truth has a funny way of finding the cracks and seeping through slowly, steadily, undeniably. We talked about how silence can be strength, how not reacting doesn't mean defeat, but discipline. But let's go deeper, because here's what's certain. People can only pretend for so long. They can only manipulate for so long. Eventually, the mask slips. The act crumbles. And when that truth finally surfaces, when the curtain is pulled back, your silence will speak louder than any argument you ever could have made. And listen closely. This isn't about pride. This isn't about some passive-aggressive way to win. This is about peace. Every time you react from pain, every time you respond to prove a point or to set the record straight, you're giving away a piece of your calm. You're handing power to people who never earned it. But when you stay still, when you protect your dignity, when you hold your head high and say nothing at all, you're saying loud and clear, I value my peace more than I need to be right. Now let's be real. I'm not telling you to pretend it didn't hurt. I'm not asking you to minimize the betrayal. Because the pain, it's real. The sting of it still echoes, and the cut runs deep. But here's the freeing truth. Your healing doesn't require their apology. Your future doesn't depend on their validation. Your purpose isn't tied to their approval. That's why you don't need to get even. You just need to keep moving forward. Because the God who sees in secret will reveal what you were strong enough to stay silent about. He will expose what you chose to walk away from with grace. And yes, one of the hardest things you'll ever do is stay silent when you could destroy someone with the truth. When you know the whole story. When you could ruin their reputation with a single sentence. When you could tell your side and theirs would fall apart. But you don't. You hold your peace. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. Because you understand that not every battle deserves a sword. Because you've learned the power of restraint. That kind of silence. That's not fear. That's spiritual maturity. That's emotional discipline. That's divine strength. See, the world teaches you to get revenge, to clap back, to make sure they never forget what they did to you. But God teaches you something higher. He teaches restraint. The world says, give them what they deserve. But God says, let me take care of it. And trust me, when God handles it, He handles it completely. He doesn't just deal with their actions. He heals your wounds. He restores what they broke. He lifts what they tried to tear down. Sometimes the best response is no response. Let your silence preach. Let your peace unsettle them. Let your growth irritate the ones who tried to break you. Because the moment you stop reacting, you stop feeding the fire. And when the fire dies down, all that's left is truth. Learn how to sit back, not with bitterness, not with vengeance, but with faith. Faith that the same God who saw every tear behind closed doors, who knows the full story you've never told, will reveal it when the time is right. And He always does, not in your timing, but in His. And when He does, it's undeniable, it's clear, and it's healing. In the stillness of your restraint, in the silence you chose, instead of reaction, God begins to move. He sees what they said. He knows what they did. And He has a divine way of vindicating those who trust Him, of lifting up those who remained silent when they had every right to make noise. So take this to heart. You don't have to rush to set the record straight. You don't have to waste time convincing people of your side. People will see. People will learn. And when the truth comes out, and it always does, make sure that you are found in peace, not in pieces. Because every time you respond out of pain, you're spending something far more valuable than words. Not money, not time, but peace. And peace. Peace is one of the most expensive things you'll ever own. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand attention. But when it's gone, you feel the absence like a weight pressing down on your soul. That's why I need you to hear this. Every unnecessary reaction costs you. Every argument you enter out of impulse. Every insult you chase down with a comeback. Every moment you let frustration or anger take the wheel. It chips away at your calm. It drains the reservoir of clarity and strength God gave you to endure. And, little by little, without realizing it, you start to lose what was meant to carry you through the storm. Peace. But let's be clear, peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is not about living a drama-free life. Peace is the presence of God in the middle of it all. So when someone comes for your name questions, your heart twists your intentions. You have a decision to make. Will you react? Or will you protect what's sacred? Will you give them a piece of your mind? Or will you keep the whole of your spirit intact? Because there's a difference, a holy difference between defending yourself and destroying your peace just to prove you're right. There are people out there who thrive on chaos. They stir it. They spread it. They live in it. But you were never meant to live that way. You were called to walk with purpose, with power, and with peace. And don't miss this. The enemy knows if he can't stop your purpose, he'll try to disrupt your peace. Because a person at peace, that person is dangerous. A person at peace sees clearly. A person at peace doesn't chase approval. They don't beg for explanations. They don't lose sleep over slander. They rest because they trust that God is working. But the moment you start reacting to every little offense, the moment you give energy to every false narrative, you begin to trade peace for pride. You let someone else's immaturity pull you back into a mindset, a place, a version of yourself you've already outgrown. And often we do it without even noticing. We hear the whisper of gossip, and we feel the itch to correct it. We feel disrespected, and silence doesn't feel like enough. We want to set the record straight, but listen closely. Some records don't need your voice. They need your silence. Because your silence is proof. Your peace is proof. Proof that you've already overcome what they're still fighting within themselves. You see, I've come to learn sometimes through heartbreak, sometimes through grace, that not every response is worth it. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every battle is yours to fight. There's a time to speak yes, but there's also a time to stand still, breathe deep, and let God speak for you. Because when you choose to protect your peace, you're not just stepping away from conflict, you're preserving your clarity. And when your mind is sound, your decisions are strong. You stop reacting out of raw pain and start responding from deep purpose. I know it hurts. I know how unfair it feels when you've poured nothing but love into someone, and they still find a way to wound you. I know the fire that rises when you want to scream, "I'm not the one to mess with." But take a moment and ask yourself, at what cost is their opinion worth your anxiety? Is that argument worth your sleepless night? Is that comeback worth the emotional distance it creates between you and your destiny? Because here's the truth. Some people aren't in your life to love you. They're there to test you, to poke at the soft spots, to see if you'll give away your peace because they know which buttons to push. And every time you choose peace over reaction, every time you walk away instead of arguing, every time you lift it up in prayer instead of firing back in anger, you pass that test. You grow. You rise. You mature. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive the storm, but carries stillness through it. Now don't get it twisted. Peace is not passivity. Choosing silence is not surrender. Walking away doesn't mean weakness. It means you've become strategic. It means you've become wise. It means you're saying, "I refuse to let what they did to me become what I do to myself." It means you're declaring, "My destiny is too precious to be derailed by a moment of rage." That's what it looks like to protect your peace. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their drama, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this really worth my peace? Because once you begin treating peace like the treasure it is, you'll stop wasting it on people who never deserved access to it in the first place. Hold on to it. Guard it. Because peace isn't loud. It doesn't demand attention. But it's the quiet strength that will carry you further than any reaction ever could. See, when someone hurts you, your instinct might be to fix it, to seek justice, to fight back. But there's something deeply powerful that happens when you choose not to retaliate. You start to heal. Holding on to the hurt doesn't just punish the person who wronged you, it punishes you. It festers in your soul. It clouds your joy. It anchors you to bitterness and regret. But when you release it, when you let it go, you make room. Room for peace. Room for healing. Room for clarity. We'll dive into what it truly means to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve freedom. Because forgiveness isn't saying what they did was okay. It's saying what they did will no longer have power over me. Forgiveness. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt or acting like the damage wasn't real. No, it's about freeing yourself. It's about removing the weight of the offense from your shoulders so you can finally breathe again. It's about unburdening your heart so that you're no longer chained to a moment that tried to break you. Because holding on to pain, it doesn't protect you. It imprisons you. Forgiveness doesn't excuse the pain, it transforms it. It takes what was meant to destroy you and turns it into something that refines you. Something that shapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in grace. Now I won't sugarcoat it. Forgiveness is hard, especially when the wound is deep, when the betrayal came from someone close, when the apology never came. In your pain, it may feel impossible to release those who've caused you the most harm. But let me offer you this. Holding on to bitterness is like drinking poison and waiting for them to suffer. It doesn't destroy them. It destroys you. It clouds your judgment. It distorts your view of others. It tightens the lens through which you see your future. And worst of all, it keeps you stuck in a moment you cannot change. The longer you cling to it, the more the wound festers. But the moment you let it go, something sacred begins to happen. You heal, not instantly, not painlessly, but from the inside out. You begin to reclaim what bitterness stole. You stop letting their actions dictate your emotions. You start taking your power back, not by punishing them, but by protecting your peace. Because real healing, it doesn't come from revenge. It doesn't come from making them feel what you felt. It comes from surrender. It comes from saying, God, I let go of the need to get even. I choose peace instead. And that's not weakness. That's strength. That's courage. That's choosing to live a life no longer chained to what happened, but open to what's possible. I know it's not easy. I know letting go might feel like losing the last piece of control you had. But listen, you cannot move forward while dragging your past behind you. You cannot build something new while clinging to what broke you. If you keep carrying the hurt, if you keep rehearsing the betrayal, you'll stay stuck in a cycle of resentment. And that's not the story God wants to write for you. Because God sees you. He sees the nights you cried behind closed doors. He sees the betrayal you never told anyone about. He knows every wound you've tried to hide. But here's what else He sees: your heart. And He's working. Not always in ways you understand, but in ways that reach deeper than you even realize. He's rebuilding what was broken, restoring what was lost, breathing peace into the places where chaos once lived. So don't be afraid to forgive. Don't be afraid to let go of the pain. Because when you release it, you release its power over you. And that's where God steps in. He fills the space that bitterness once occupied with peace, with grace, with healing. When you choose forgiveness, you create space for something greater: God's peace. He doesn't just patch up your wounds. He fills your heart with stillness, with calm, with a sense of wholeness that only He can give. He takes the hurt that once seemed permanent and slowly, miraculously begins to turn it into healing. Now hear me clearly. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean you erase the memory or pretend the pain didn't happen. It doesn't excuse their actions or minimize the betrayal. But it does mean this: you refuse to let their actions control your future. You choose to walk in freedom, not chains. You choose not to carry the weight of what was done to you into every new day God is trying to give you. Because when you finally let go of the anger, the bitterness, and the lingering pain, you make room for healing, for joy, for clarity. You create space for God to restore what was broken, to lift you to new places you couldn't reach while burdened by yesterday. Healing won't happen overnight. There's no instant fix for heartbreak. It's a process. But every day you choose to release instead of rehearse. Every day you choose to forgive instead of relive. You take one step closer to freedom. And one day you'll wake up and realize something powerful: that the pain that once consumed you, the offense that used to trigger your emotions, no longer has a hold on you. You'll look in the mirror and realize that the person you were before the hurt and the person you are now, they're not the same. You're stronger, you're wiser, you're more at peace than you ever imagined. So let it go. Let it hurt if it needs to. Let it heal. And if it creeps back up again, let it go again. Because the kind of freedom that comes from releasing what you can't control, that's the freedom that opens the door to everything God wants to pour into your life. You are not what happened to you. You are not defined by the betrayal. You are defined by how you rise above it. And as you continue to grow through this journey, there's one truth you have to hold close. Not every battle is yours to fight. Not every insult deserves a comeback. Not every wound needs a war. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away. I know it sounds counterintuitive, especially in a world that teaches us to stand our ground, to defend our name, to make sure no one gets away with disrespect. But here's the quiet truth that most people miss. There is strength in silence. There is power in choosing not to get involved in every storm that passes your way. When someone hurts you, the urge is real to react, to speak up, to expose them, to prove you're not weak. But pause. What if reacting actually gives them more power than they deserve? What if your silence isn't surrender but strategy? Because the moment you react, you let them steer your emotions. You give them control over your peace, your state of mind, your next move. That's not strength. That's surrendering your power to someone who never earned it. But when you choose stillness, when you choose peace, you win. You hold on to your dignity, your clarity, and your purpose. What if in those moments of betrayal, you simply said, "I'm not going to react. I'm going to let God handle it"? That choice. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's power. In the quiet of your refusal to react, you're not giving up. You're standing firm. The truth is, the more you react to negativity, the more you argue, the deeper you dive into conflict, the more you feed right into what you're trying to escape. You become entangled in drama that nibbles at your strength. But when you decide not to engage, when you refuse to enter the argument, you create distance. You craft space for your own healing, and you give God the room to handle what's bigger than you. Consider the real power it takes to control your response when someone pushes your buttons. Think about the character it takes to walk away, even when you could easily make them regret their actions. That's the kind of strength that forms you from the inside out. That kind of strength doesn't crave applause or recognition. It seeks the approval of something greater, something infinite that knows your best. Sometimes walking away isn't just preserving your peace, it's protecting your future. Because every time you engage in a pointless fight, every time you stoop to someone else's level, you lose a chance to grow. You miss an opportunity to learn a lesson. You miss a moment to demonstrate that your joy isn't anchored in the whims of others. Rather, you become a force untouchable by the petty noise that used to steal your calm. That kind of inner power sustains you through whatever storms life sends. Yes, you might be thinking, but they deserve to hear the truth. They need to understand the consequences of what they did. And yes, that urge is natural, but remember, their understanding won't heal you. Their apology won't erase your pain. You have to find your healing outside of them, independent of their approval. You have to learn to stand whole even when no one else sees your value. You must choose to move forward without waiting for someone else's permission. That's hard, especially in a world that teaches us to fight for our names, to defend our rights, to make our voices heard. And there are times for raising your voice. But the real victory, the real triumph comes when you can stand firm in who you are, knowing no opinion, no interference, no disrespect can define or derail you. True victory happens when you gaze at someone who tried to hurt you and say, "Your opinion doesn't move me. Your actions cannot steal my peace." Every time you choose silence over reaction, you choose alignment with your purpose. You stop wasting energy on voices that will never understand and begin investing in your own growth. You stop draining yourself in battles that only fatten the dusty corners of past hurts, and instead, you start pursuing the life God called you to, a life of peace, of joy, of clear purpose. That life isn't full of drama. It's not about looking over your shoulder wondering who will try to tear you down next. It's a life of confidence, a life shaped not by what happened to you, but by how you rise above it. So hold tight to this truth. Not every wound demands a voice. Not every battle requires a fight. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Protect your peace and trust God to handle the rest.